him. Now we are proceeding towards our second lecture on the main topic of research methodology, and under this topic today we are going to discuss randomized controlled trials or RCTs, their basics and journal application. Now let us continue with our topic, and in the next slide we will talk about the introduction of the randomized control trials. First of all, what are RCTs or randomized control trials? They provide strong evidence to support EBM practices. It means that in evidence-based medicine practices, in clinical practices, they are considered as very strong evidence, very strong literature. The information which is provided by randomized controlled trials are considered as gold standard, and that is why most of the clinicians they try to apply the information which is provided by RCTs in their clinical practice because it is considered as very strong evidence and standard. Now, goal of this trial is to measure a primary outcome in a highly selected group of individuals or study participants that are randomly assigned to receive one or more clinical intervention. In these trials, what usually researchers measure the main outcome or the primary outcome with the drug or the any prevention or the surgery. That if you are doing in a clinical study, clinical trial, or you are applying the drug in clinical study to the patients or participants, and then what is the outcome and what is the magnitude of the outcome. Most of the RCTs are designed to determine the effect of a specific intervention on health related outcome, disease prevention or progression of disease. Means that the majority of clinical trials they are usually designed in a specific way to determine the effect of the drug in particular situation. What is that particular situation? Maybe disease prevention, disease control or progression of the disease. That is why RCTs are regarded as the strongest type of study design in clinical research, and most of the clinicians try to follow it. Now, let us talk about the RCTs in the drug development. RCTs are required by the FDA as a part of NDA or the new drug application. Whenever any pharmaceutical company want to bring any product, any of their product in the market, then they have to submit for the registration to the regulatory body. In USA, this regulatory body is FDA, and on which application this new drug should be applied, it should be applied through NDA, new drug application. With this new drug application, the complete information of the drug, their clinical studies, physicochemical parameters, all are provided and attached with this NDA, and then the pharmaceutical company submit this file with NDA to the FDA or regulatory body in that specific country. Like in Pakistan, DRAP, which is DRAP, Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, it is considered as Pakistani FDA. RCTs are key requirements in clinical drug development cycle. They are very important studies, imperative, often referred to as phase 3 or pivotal studies. They are usually conducted in phase 3 of clinical studies. You know that during the drug development there are different phases for the drug development, in which when the drug is applied or the tried in the human, then it should go through certain phases like phase 1 studies, phase 2 study and phase 3 study. Once the drug has been passed and qualified from the phase 3 study, then now it is this drug is eligible and pharmaceutical company can submit the NDA or new drug application. Now, adherence to very strict selection criteria, proper trial design and minimization of bias are all critically important to establish the relative efficacy and safety of the drug. Means that to have a good RCT or randomized clinical study, it should have a strict selection criteria for the participants, and the trial design should be very proper, very scientific as per the standards, and bias should be minimized. There must be a balance between internal validity and external validity of the study. So after when all these properties are applied or adhere with the clinical study, then we can establish the efficacy and safety of the drug. Relative means compared to other drugs. Like for example, in the first lecture I told that suppose that I have made a new antihypertensive drug. So my drug is a research drug or the experimental drug, and the drug which or the drug which I am using to compare my drug is called the reference drug or the brand drug. So my drug is relative to reference drug is better in terms of efficacy and safety, or it is similar to efficacy and safety to the reference drug. That should be established through randomized control trial. Now, validity of randomized control trial. Validity of a study refer to the degree to which the findings are correct. As I told you in the beginning, there are two types of validity: internal validity and external validity. A study must be designed very carefully to ensure that results obtained are valid and appropriate conclusions are inferred. And it is important to recognize factors that can threaten the validity and bias the study results. So the study results should be evaluated, and if there is it should be important to recognize those factors whenever designing the study, that what are the factors which may threaten the validity and bias of study results or may cause the bias in the study results. So that is why these parameters should be evaluated and try to be minimized. Validity can be internal and external validity. Now, maximization of internal validity. Best way to maximize internal validity is to randomly assign a study participant to receive intervention so that the observed changes in blood pressure, outcome or dependent variable, can most likely be explained by the new medication intervention or independent variable. Same example of antihypertensive. Number one, if you want to raise the internal validity or maximize the internal validity, do randomization in the study. Suppose that I am doing sample size the size of the study is 200 individual, 200 hypertensive patients, age group from 45 to 65 years. So I have 200 individuals who have hypertension, established hypertension. They are included in the study. Their age is in the range of 45 to 65 years. Now I will give to all participants a single number, like the 1, 2, 3 up till 300. So because I have total 300 participants. Now it means that 150 participants will take the experimental drug and 150 will take reference drug. But I will not assign to each individual that which one will go to the reference drug and which one will go to the experimental drug. It will be the random number, or the computer will generate the randomly different numbers that this individual will go to the this particular site or in this particular group. Like for example, that it is similar to these numbers to the patients are just like the class roll number, like roll number 1 to roll number 300. Now the computer, I have put down the button on the computer, and the first random number generated by the computer, suppose that it is 123. I will ask that who have 123 number. The patient will say, the individual will say, I have 123 number. That patient will come to the one group. Then I will put down another number. Then the next number is generated by the computer is, suppose that 7. I will ask who has 7 number. The individual will say, I have 7 number. This 7 number will go to the another group. Then after this, all 300 individuals distribution in equal manner, like 150 at one group, 150 and another group. One group of 150 patients will take the experimental drug or the new drug, and the another group will take the reference drug or the product which is already available in the market. But in order to avoid the biasness, all should be blinded. None of the patient will know that which patient is taking drug 1 or the experimental drug and which patient is taking the drug 2 or the reference drug. Even I myself as a researcher, even I will never have this information that which patient is taking experimental drug and which patient is taking reference drug. So by this way there will be a double blinding of the study and internal validity will not be compromised. Control the study design factors implemented by scientists before conducting the study. All these factors, in order to maximizing the internal validity, must be controlled before designing the study. Like some of the most important factors that may threaten internal validity are selection bias. Selection bias means like I myself as a researcher select that which patient will go to the experimental drug and which patient will go to the reference drug, but by randomization I have stopped this selection bias. History means all patients should have similar types of disease. Maturation, disease maturation, mortality and attrition rate, testing, instrumentation, statistical regression, all should be equally quantified in equal groups to avoid the threatening of the internal validity. What is selection bias? Issue. When a study involves a comparison of outcome in a treatment group and control group, treatment group experimental drug, control group reference drug, the differences in patients' baseline characteristics such as disease severity and demographics in two groups can lead to selection bias. Means that, for example, I am a researcher, I am assigning those individuals who have less severe severity of the disease to the experimental drug and those who have high severity to the control drug or reference drug. So automatically those who have mild disease, they will recover well with the drug, and this will be a biasness because all patients should be divided equally based upon the severity or even based upon the demographics. Among demographics, suppose that even the gender or sex wise, male and female, I have given all female control drug and all male treatment drug. This is again bias. So we should avoid this selection bias, and this selection bias can be avoided by randomization. Selection bias can affect the internal validity, and selection bias is most problematic in retrospective trial or observational studies. But it will also be an issue in randomized clinical trials. How to minimize? Selection bias can be minimized by randomization at the time of recruiting study participants. Okay, so randomization is the way through which we can avoid this type of selection bias. Now, in internal validity, what is definition? Internal validity is the degree to which the outcome can be explained by differences in assigned intervention. For example, a trial set out to determine whether a new antihypertensive drug can reduce blood pressure in patients with hypertension. Protocol of this type of a study would require very strict adherence to enrollment criteria such that both groups, that is treatment versus control, are similar as possible before the study begins. Okay, so internal validity is saying that the degree to which the outcome can be explained by differences in assigned intervention. One group is taking treatment, another group of the patient is taking control. All groups have, as per protocol, they are strict to the adherence to the enrollment criteria, the patient selection criteria, patient type, disease severity. If all are perfect, then that means that the efficacy and safety, whatever we are determining for the new product and the established product or the standard product, their differences will be very clear. Means the cause and effect relationship will be very vivid. There will be no vagueness in cause and effect relationship. Means that we will be sure that experimental drug is reducing the blood pressure up to this extent, and the standard or the reference drug is reducing the blood pressure up to this extent, and we can compare both, that which one is better in reducing the blood pressure. But if there is any other factor which is influencing their results and making the doubt in this cause and effect relationship, means outcome and the drug, means outcome of the drug, so then that issue is that issue will maybe that may lead to misleading results, or that will cause the doubts over the results. What about the history? Factors that can alter the outcome of a study due to external events occur during the course of the study. Suppose some external events that may affect the outcome of the study. For example, one group of individuals have environment in which they are very relaxed. So this is external event that can affect the course of the treatment, that can affect the outcome of the study. While on the other group, the patients included, those patients included in the other group, they had very bad external environment, that was very tense environment, so that will also affect the outcome of the study. Changes in the outcome of a study may be because of loss of job or death of a family member, because we know excuse me, that there are some also psychological factors, some other psychological factors that may affect the results of the study. So this should be evaluated. Thus it may not be possible to distinguish whether or not the observed changes in outcome are due to intervention or external event. So if such type of issues are there, we will not be sure that the changes in the patient or the outcome are due to intervention or due to external event. Maybe this is due to external event, not due to intervention. So we should avoid that. How to minimize external influences in a study? Can be minimized by the inclusion of randomized control group in prospective clinical trial design. So randomization is solution. What about maturation? Normal changes in study participants over time. This is the issue. Maturation means normal changes in study participants over time. For example, increase in disease severity, disease complexity in hypertensive patients during a study, or worsening condition over time in populations such as elderly or those with dementia. So how we can minimize this issue? Use of randomized control groups where similar changes are occurring over the time in both treatment and control group. So if we do randomization, such type of patients will be distributed equally in both groups, means that treatment group or experimental drug and the reference drug or the control group. So if the patients are withdrawing the study from treatment group, same number of study participants will withdraw from the control group, so there will be no issue in the study, because at the end the number of patients will remain same in both groups. Now mortality and attrition. What is the issue? Internal validity and study can be compromised by withdrawal or loss of subjects over time in a study group. Means that sometimes these studies are conducted over a long period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. So sometime what happened, the study participants, those who have enrolled themselves in the beginning of the study, but after some time they say that we want to withdraw from the study. Sometime the subject has been lost or expired. So this type of problem can occur. This is called attrition. This may occur because of death, adverse event. During the clinical study, adverse event occur and the patient is no more interested to participate, lack of compliance to treatment regimen. So it poses a particular problem. If attrition is more in treatment group than control group, then may lead to biased outcome. So what will happen, that in treatment group, for example, attrition rate is higher, more number of individuals have lost the or withdrawn from the study for in a study time period. So but in control group, number of patients are more, so there will be a disbalance in number of patients in treatment group and control group. So by this way again the results will be biased. How we can minimize this attrition? Attrition rates have to be monitored and controlled by design or statistical analysis to minimize the effects of attrition. So statistical, in what you will do in statistical analysis, you will first calculate the minimum sample size, and you will add 20 to 30% more patients, extra patient in both groups, to avoid because you have to maintain the minimum sample size of the study. Every study has minimum sample size. Suppose that a study is designed and its sample size is 250 individuals, and I am assigning 125 and 125 in each group, 125 in control group and 125 in treatment group. So, but if the number of individuals will go less than 125 in each side, either treatment or control group, because of withdrawal or attrition, then the minimum sample size will be compromised. And when the minimum sample size of a study is compromised, then study power will be weak. In order to keep the power of the study higher, at higher side, we have to keep extra individuals in each group. So if the minimum sample size is 125 in each arm of the study, then we have to keep at least 20% more, maybe 150 and 150 in each arm. So if in case of withdrawal at the end of the study, the minimum sample size is maintained. Now the next is the testing. What is the issue? Studies are required participant to take test or participate in their own assessment over time are susceptible to problem due to repeated or prior test. Testing effects may be reactive or unreactive. Reactive effects of testing refer to situation where taking test or assessment can influence subsequent test or outcome of studies. And studies that require self-monitoring, such as blood pressure measurement, are often considered highly reactive because the participants may alter their behavior due to monitoring. That sometimes the testing, frequent testing, require the reactive behavior. Sometimes the testing is not possible very frequently. Sometimes the testing occur at wrong time. Suppose that you want to take the blood sample for drug level, and in some individual it has not been taken at the right time, so that can alter the results. How to minimize? By unbiased investigators, means investigator should also be unbiased. By research team members, use of randomized control group that is similarly influenced by reactive testing. Instrumentation. Many types of studies conducted over long period of time and require the use of instrument to measure the outcome. So it is therefore possible that changes in instrument can influence the outcome. Suppose that at first time I was checking the results with the HPLC of Shimadzu, but in the second time I am checking the results with the HPLC of Hitachi. So the instruments are changed, that can also influences the outcome. So instruments may be due to changes in sensitivity and specificity of the instrument, and improvement in technology and changes in instrument techniques all can influence the result. Survey instruments are significant concern in this regard. Survey instruments are usually called survey questionnaires. They should also be valid, otherwise they will also lead to misleading results or incorrect result. How to address? Measurement should be consistent with single instrument. Single instrument should be used for all tests. In statistical regression, what are the issues? Regression or reversion to the mean refer to the case where initial measurement of a variable are extremely different, either low or high, from the population means. Means that the sample mean is very different from the population mean, and subsequent measurement are close to the population average. But when you are doing it second time, then this sample mean is coming closer to the population average or population mean. This regression to mean has been attributed to physiological process. This is because of differences in physiological processes. This problem occurs most often in studies that have the outcome that are susceptible to random error. This is called random error. In such situation, this statistical regression, how it can be avoided? First of all, avoid extreme groups, means extreme results should be avoided. And number two, using randomized control group, randomization is the solution. So by all these ways we can maximize the internal validity. Now how we can maximize external validity? External validity indicates that the findings of a given study can be generalized to other settings or population. This is what I already discussed in lecture 1, that external validity means if a study have or randomized control trial have external validity, it means that the results of the study can be applied to my practice, to the general population, or in my clinical setting. So if this is the situation, it means there is external validity in the study. But if the study population is different from the population which I see in my clinical practice, so the study results will be invalid for me, and that study will be considered as low in external validity for my patients, because my patients are different from the patients which were studied in the clinical trial or randomized control studies. Most common threats to external validity or generalizability occur in areas of what are the possible most common external validity probabilities for to cause threat to the external validity. Number one, treatment interaction with subject selection. I am selecting individuals, those who are very different from the real life situation, means that the patients are different from the real life patients. Setting of the study, suppose that setting of a study is entirely different, means that long-term care facility, and in my country long-term care facility is not available, we have only clinics and hospital setting. And historical factors, means patient historical or genetic or gene or race are different in the patients, those who were participated in the study, but my patients are different. They are different in the race, in ethnic group. That is why external validity is there, is compromised. If all these factors are addressed in designing the study, that there is a randomization in the subject selection for the treatment group and control group. Setting of the study is similar like the natural setting of the clinical study, like my study in my practice. And historical factors and genetic factors, race and smoking, non-smoking, all these parameters were addressed in all groups. So these type of patients, which means the overall conclusion is that if all these factors are addressed, and the patients, those who were enrolled in the clinical study, have the same characteristics which I see in my real life clinical practice, if it is like that, it means there is external validity of this study, and I can apply the result of that RCTs in my clinical practice. Now, interaction with treatment and subject selection. How it can occur? When effect of the treatment or selected subjects differ from other population. As I told you, that subjects selected in the study are differing from the population which I see in my clinical practice. And also occur if the study conducted in military veterans who are almost males and older adults. But in my real life clinical practice, I don't see patients those who are military veterans, means retired individuals of military, and I see male and female in equal quantity, and not only old individuals, I see also young patients as well. So that will be an issue. So external validity will compromise. Clinicians often are concerned about study participants in a way that is the group of the patients included in this study representative of the patients that I see in my clinic every day. If it is like this, the study representative are having the same characteristics which I see in my patients in my clinical practice or clinic every day, it means external validity is there. What is demography of participants? Demography of participant is the same which I see demographically patient in my clinical practice. If it is same, so it means there is external validity. Interaction with treatment and pre-testing. In studies involving pre-test, it is possible that treatment will only work in those individuals who took the pre-test. So suppose that pre-test and pre-testing sensitized the subject to the treatment. Means patients were already treated before with this drug and now they are re-included in the study. So that is sensitizing the subject to the treatment. Without pre-test, treatment would be less effective or ineffective. So there must be a interaction with the treatment and pre-testing individuals. Issue of more concern in studies evaluating the psychological measures. Psychological measures should also be addressed. Now the next is the interaction with treatment and setting. Some clinical trials are conducted in highly specialized or artificial research setting using novel interventions and instruments. So again this is issue because my clinical practice is not highly specialized and it does not have artificial research setting. So external validity is compromised. So a study should not be conducted in highly specialized or artificial research setting. Results of these studies may not be extrapolated to the normal settings such as rural community hospitals or outpatient clinics. So this is the issue, that because of highly specialized centers, artificial research setting, so these studies cannot be applied to the normal clinical setting which I see in my practice. During control trial, it is possible that the subjects become more compliant to the prescribed regimen, and it is natural because during the clinical trial the nursing staff is providing the medication, so patients are taking or subjects are taking the drug on time and there will be a more compliance. When study subjects modify their behavior because of the fact that they are being studied or observed is typically referred to as Hawthorne effect. And even the study subjects modify their behavior during the study because they are aware that they are under the observation. So that this effect is called Hawthorne effect, and that can produce the placebo effect on the patient. Then that can affect the real effect of the real response of the drug. The outcome of the drug could be could not be up to that extent which is available in this clinical specialized setting. So this should be avoided. Now the next is the interaction with treatment and history. It is possible that the results of the study conducted in the past may not apply today or in future. This is another issue. There are many factors in healthcare system that may change as time progresses. Changeable factors may access to care, standards of setting, socioeconomic issue, change of practice guidelines, etc. All these factors may affect the interaction. Means that when I was starting the study, at that time clinical practice guideline was saying this drug is considered as first line treatment, but when study has been completed, the clinical practice guideline is saying this drug is last line of treatment. So where is my drug? My drug will be, or the new drug will be considered as last line of drug, but initially we had planned to bring my drug or the research drug as a first line therapy. So that can also affect the external validity of the study. Another issue is the multiple treatment. Sometimes the patient is on the multiple treatment. Complexity of treatment or multiple treatment as a part of standard care or the intervention can have significant effect on the results obtained, because we will have doubt the results are because of which drug, because we are giving multiple treatments. So which treatment, this effect is basically because of which treatment. So that can affect the results and external validity is compromised. Study findings can only be generalized to those with the multiple treatment. So we can, at the end of the study, we will say that this multiple treatment, when we are giving combinedly, then the results will come. To a single therapy or to a single treatment in this study, we cannot say that this drug is really effective in that particular disease. In such complex treatment designs, where the study outcome depend on factors that are outside the control of researcher, external validity is challenged. So those factors which are outside the control of researcher, in this situation external validity is challenged. Suppose that stage 2 hypertension cases require at least two different class of drug treatment. So it would be difficult to determine single drug or class effect on stage 2 hypertension, because as per guideline two drugs must be given. Now as antihypertensive, when you are giving two drug in a combination, then you will never come to know that which drug is actually providing or which drug is having a strong effect, a strong antihypertensive effect or better antihypertensive effect compared to another drug, because you are giving in a combination form. So you can say that this combination is providing a better effect, but you cannot say that in these two drugs the drug one is much better in antihypertensive, providing better antihypertensive effect compared to drug 2. So that you cannot conclude in that situation. Now how you can minimize bias? Minimizing the bias. Bias is a systematic error in the study design that can lead to incorrect finding. So bias should be avoided. Statistically, it refers to the tendency of a measure to deviate in one direction from true value. It's what statistics define bias, that deviation of result in one direction from the true value, either at positive side or the negative side. Deviation from true value can have disastrous effect on trial outcome by underestimation or overestimation of true effect of the treatment. So deviation from true value may be in positive direction or negative direction. If it is in negative direction, it means underestimation of the drug effect. If it is in positive direction, it means overestimation of the true effect of the drug. Bias can be investigator bias. It could be investigator bias, selection bias, performance bias, attrition bias, and detection bias. What are these biases? We will discuss now. In investigator bias, errors in study design means from the beginning investigator designed the study with error. Implementation of the, suppose that design is good but implementation of the study is in an error, have an error, or analysis by investigator. At any area, design level, implementation level, or analysis level, investigator can do the error. This is called investigator error. Research team is responsible for assessing and recording the outcome of the patient in trial. So it is not a single person. The team can collect the results and record the outcome of the results. Same investigator may also aware of which patient are allocated to treatment and control group. Sometime investigator is aware that which patient is taking the treatment and which patient is taking the control drug. So that could be investigator bias. Investigators may unknowingly record the outcome for patient treated with new drug in more favorable way than for the control group. If the investigator is aware that which patient is taking treatment and which is taking control, so unknowingly investigator record the outcome for patient with drug in a more favorable way than the standard drug. So in this case, effect of new drug may be exaggerated. So investigator bias can be overcome by blinding of the study, means double blinding, that the participants of the study or the patients, they are not aware, and even the investigator is not aware that which group of patient is getting the treatment drug or the experimental drug and which patient of group is taking control drug or reference drug. Selection bias, this is we have already discussed, but again, preferential enrollment of a specific patient into one treatment group over another, means we prefer to enroll particular patient in one group compared to another group, means treatment group over to control group. Selection bias may be introduced when the patient do not have equal chances to be allocated to the treatment or control arm. This problem will occur when patients do not have a right and chance to, or they cannot decide, or they cannot decide, and the investigator or they themselves decide that they want to go in treatment group or they want to go in control group. if patients with worse condition are allocated to the control group, and the treatment arm may appear to be less effective or vice versa. So this problem will occur. The most effective way to reduce this selection bias is again randomization. Computer generated random number will assign. Neither the investigator nor the patient will decide that who will go into the treatment group and who will go into the control group. Performance bias, this is another issue. Systematic differences in care between treatment group or in exposure to factor other than intervention being studied. Means systematic differences in care between treatment and other group. Performance bias can be introduced into the study if the investigator focus more attention on one group of participants compared to another. So this is possible. If this is the case, in this case, experimental treatment group may have more intense monitoring and have greater chances of positive outcome compared to control group. So how we can reduce this performance bias? It can be minimized by prohibiting the investigator from knowing the treatment allocating cation or blinding. It means that this problem can be reduced by blinding the study from the investigator. Investigator should not know that which group of patient is taking the treatment drug and which group of the patient is taking experimental drug, or which patient of group is taking the control drug or comparator drug or reference drug. So by this way it can be minimized. Attrition bias, differential dropout of patient in treatment and control group, means dropout or withdrawal of patient in treatment group and control group. With the progress of a study, it is often observed that more subjects will drop out in the treatment group because of side effects. It is expected and estimated. Analyzing the data of the smaller group, treatment group, because of dropout after completion of a study may lead to attrition bias. So if the dropout rate is higher in the treatment group, then after the completion of a study the result will be misleading, and this is because of attrition. This is called attrition bias. Intention to treat analysis technique is appropriate to counter attrition bias. In this situation, intention to treat analysis technique is applied to counter the attrition bias. What is intention to treat analysis technique? Intention to treat analysis technique is saying that you, at the end of the study, you include all the patients in final analysis and final calculation of result to all those patients who have taken even a single dose of a drug. For example, it means that those individuals who have taken even a single dose of a drug, but after taking single dose they have withdrawn from the study, but you kept their follow-up and you included them in the final analysis, then this type of analysis is called intention to treat analysis, because initially you had the intention to treat them. So once they have withdrawn, but initially they have taken even a single dose, that is why they are included in the final analysis. So this is called intention to treat analysis. Those who have taken 2 doses, 3 doses, 4 doses, but they have withdrawn, they are also included in analysis. Some patients will continue the study from day 1 to the day last and completed all doses of the study. If you analyze only their results, those who have completed the study from day 1 to day last, and exclude all those patients who have lost the follow-up or they left the study, you have excluded them, but you evaluate the results of only those and analyze them, only those patients, those who have completed the full study, then this situation is called, or this type of analysis is called per protocol analysis. Why it is called per protocol analysis? Because these patients completed the study as per protocol from day 1 to the day last. So, but anyway, how we can minimize the attrition bias? Intention to treat analysis is a way to counter the attrition bias. Detection bias, systematic differences between group in how outcomes are determined, occur when investigator is aware of a steady treatment allocation while making an assessment of outcome in a given patient. Means investigator is aware of the steady treatment allocation. This detection bias occur when the investigator or the researcher is aware that the which group of patient is taking which type of treatment, experimental drug or control drug. This problem will occur in this situation. Overestimation of true effect of treatment may occur in this situation. How we can minimize this detection bias? Again, blinding and randomization. Detection bias can be minimized by the use of non-study personnel to assess the patient outcome. Non-study personnel can also assess the patient, and blinding is also the way through which we can avoid the detection bias. So this is all about for today's lecture. From the next lecture, we will continue with the randomization. Thank you very much.